welcome back to Shoogly Shed Motors. The XJR 1300 obviously has kind of been wrapped up now, and that's now my daily rider, which is very exciting because I'm actually getting to ride a bike I built fairly regularly, so yeah, I'm very chuffed with that. However, not to rest on my laurels for too long, I want to get on with another project that I've had waiting in the sidelines. I've picked up a couple of project bikes over my time building the XJR and just sort of put them away in storage or dotted around the shed, as you may have noticed in the background of some videos. But basically, my goal, I suppose, for this channel is to be able to build project bikes to make content for this channel so that you guys can enjoy it. And then sort of shift the bikes on and use the money from those in order to fund the next projects for the channel. So, you know, it's not a big money making enterprise, it's just about making sure that I can, you know, financially support this hobby. And it is basically a hobby. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. So without further ado, let's crack into another project. This, ladies and gentlemen, is not a Yamaha. It's a Honda CB250RS. Basically, I picked this up from an old friend for a song. He had bought it in hopes of stripping it down and restoring it and putting it back together again. Unfortunately, as usual, life gets in the way, and when he wanted to shift it on, I said I would take it off his hands. So, as you can see, it has begun a bit of a process of dismantling. The engine is currently, the top end has been stripped off of it, and I'll show you that in a minute. But obviously this is just a little classic bike. It's a 1980, it's MOT and tax exempt, which is quite nice. So I've got a wee plan for this bike, so I will go over that in a second. And then we'll also get some of the parts out that I got with this bike and decide maybe a couple of jobs to tackle first. I'm not intending this to be a long-term project, just a few months worth of work. In order to get this bike back up to a running standard, and then, like I said earlier, shift it on to fund more projects, like the little CB400 that's sitting over in the corner patiently waiting its turn. So, as you can kind of see, the bike is in a pretty rough state. It is absolutely not a classic example of this bike. It has, obviously, there's the brake and brake lever and clutches goosed as well. I think that's the original headlight and the original clocks. I like the tank on it. I think the tank's quite cool. I'm probably going to stick with this colour scheme. Go for a refresh, basically, bring it back up to original looks, but I quite like the black and the blue stripe, leading down to obviously the RS on the rear cowl back here. The seat's actually in not too bad shape, but considering what I'm going to do to the rest of the bike, it might be worth getting that recovered to match the rest of it. Got a little set of Hagon shockies at the back here, but a bit like the rest of the bike, they're not in amazing condition, a bit crusty, so maybe restore them or replace them, not sure, depending on what the budget allows. We've got spokes on this, which I quite like. I like a set of old spoked wheels. Again, they're a bit crusty, but nice alloy rim and they run true. So, I may upset the internet a lot, and get these sandblasted and then powder coated as a complete unit rather than rebuilding them, just from a budget point of view, but also the proper way to do this obviously would be to strip the wheel down, take all the spokes off, powder coat the rim, powder coat the hub, rebuild it with fresh spokes, and that's kind of your top marks example of restoring a wheel like this. But with a mind on budget basically for this build, I think getting the wheels just powder coated as is, it will probably suffice, and then any future owner, if they feel like it, they can go down the route of getting the wheels rebuilt properly. But they're running true and there's no spokes missing. The spokes seem, apart from a little bit rusty, in pretty good nick, so that's probably what I'll be going for. Similar kind of rust spots on the swing arm, looking a bit crusty. The tank under here, a bit crusty and rusty too, but actually the inside of the tank's quite clean, so that's a good sign. Just need to deal with the rust under the seat there. What else are we looking at? Obviously, foot pegs are the originals. Maybe we can spin up some nice replacements in the lathe just for a wee bit more bling. Now the obvious thing. No, an engine should not be sitting in a bag for life. So let's pull this out and have a quick look at it. And then I also have a bunch of parts in this bag, in this box, to sift through as well. Right, let's have a look at this engine. Okay, obviously the engine has been partially stripped. The side casings have been taken off and the top end has been stripped down. I believe I have all the parts in those spare boxes over there. Although one thing I have immediately noticed, I don't know if you can really pick that up on the camera, is quite a lot of damage to the back of this piston. Quite significant rubbing or scoring, potentially some kind of piston slapping going on. There's a wee bit of play in that con rod, so I'd be interested to get the crank out and see what condition the bearing on the crank is in, because that probably, well, that could be part of the issue, is that the bearing on the big end has let go or worn excessively and let the piston basically slap about in the bore. What I'll also show you is some damage that I found on the cylinder. So I'll be not sure if you can pick this up on the camera terribly well. I will try, but I don't know if you can just see in the cylinder there. Hold that in the light maybe. Hard to tell, but that is quite a deep score right up the barrel there. And a few slightly lighter scores elsewhere. Without getting my calipers out, I couldn't tell you if there's any other damage to the cylinder, but it's definitely not the healthiest. So this is obviously going to need to be repaired or replaced. It doesn't feel overly deep, that score, so I'm hoping we can get away with a 1mm rebore on this cylinder. So what I mean by that is have the cylinder rebored by a machine shop 1mm bigger. That will hopefully get rid of that scoring, and then we can replace the piston with a 1mm upsized piston, and that hopefully should take care of that issue. But like I said, the crank needs investigating as well to see if there's damage or just worn bearing or something that has caused this issue in the first place. So obviously the engine is a rebuild candidate. It will need to get stripped down to the gearbox, to the casings, and these things looked at, checked over, replace parts that need replaced, and then rebuild the thing. They're quite cool, these engines. It's a single cylinder 250cc with, I think it's 4 valves with overhead cam. So they're meant to be little nippy machines actually, big sort of thumping 250cc single cylinder, but you know, it's the RS model meant to be a bit more sort of sport-like, as sporty as a 250cc from 1980 can be. But yeah, I think that there's nothing yet that's overly concerning. Obviously the damage to the barrel isn't ideal, but there are solutions to that. I did get given a gasket set with the engine. So again, thinking about budgets, I don't want to pour too much money into rebuilding this engine if I can avoid it. But it does need done. There's no way I'm going to stick that barrel back on with that piston and, you know, in all good faith, pass this bike on to somebody else, which is ultimately the goal at the end of this build. So that is a chunk of work needing done, but, you know, given I've just rebuilt a big inline 4, much more complicated engine, I'm sure this wouldn't challenge me too much. Fingers crossed, that might be the famous last words, but, you know, we'll see. Next up we have a bag of miscellaneous parts. Let's have a sift through some of this. So that's obviously an air filter. And here is a brand new reproduction Brakemaster cylinder lever. That looks like fork gator to me. Dust seal. There's a spark plug. Quite a few O-rings and seals. Those are bearings, shell bearings. No, are they? No, they are exhaust collets. So they are exhaust collets. There's more engine seals, I think. What we've got in here. That is a set of brake pads. And another O-ring. So a bunch of parts there. The thing is, these are all OEM Honda parts, so there's a fair amount of money in this box, just in parts alone. And actually that's where budgets can quickly run away, is just buying little bits and pieces like this. So that's worth hanging on to, definitely worth having. And here, that looks like I guess that's a sprocket set. Yeah, that's a sprocket for the back, and feels like there's a front one in there too. To go along with that, we've got a chain. Again, like I say, these are expensive little parts that quickly add up. And this. That is a choke cable. That is shoes, brake shoes for the back drum brake, and throttle cables by the looks of it. Throttle cables, yep. Oh, there's the original Brakemaster cylinder. That's probably going to go in the bin. We also have those are yeah, exhaust flanges. Good. There's a brake hose, front brake hose. Yeah, CB250RS front brake hose. Again, useful parts, very useful parts. And then this looks like just a bag of bits that have been stripped off the bike. That's obviously our rear brake rod. A bit of bend in it. That looks like another rear brake rod. Interesting. There's a rear brake pedal that's gotten a wee bit bent, so that'll need straightening. Pillion pegs, kickstart lever, that's useful. That's our front brake caliper. That's an engine bracket that goes onto the frame at the front. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly all there, to be honest. That is very useful, having all these parts. So the other cardboard box behind me, I've just had a quick look, is just the rest of the engine casings and the cylinder head and things like that. So that's all wrapped up in there, ready for putting back on the engine when it gets rebuilt. Let's have a little talk over some of the things I want to do to this bike. I don't want to fully restore this bike. I'm sure there'll be purists out there that will say save it, you know, and restore it back to factory showroom condition, but it's not really my area of interest. So I think this is a good candidate for a bit of a resto mod to make the bike still have that kind of 80s classic style, but a couple of wee upgrades, some kind of more modern creature comforts, probably rewire it with an intelligent wiring system, and then a couple of extra little 21st century touches as well. I really don't like 80s headlights, big square headlights like this, and I don't like the big clocks either. I'm sure there's people out there that are shouting at their screen right now going, no, they're original, they're the period. I get that, it's not my style, and I think the bike could just look a little bit more interesting with some of this getting swapped out to some different styles of headlights and things. So probably going to ditch the clocks in the headlight, and then again, big indicators like this could be switched out for something a bit more neat and stylish. To do all that, obviously we'll probably be making some custom headlight and speedometer bracketry. I like the full mudguard on it. There's the original mudguard, I like that, and I like the rear cowl plastic as well. So I'm going to try and keep the main bulk and body of the bike as original as possible. So at a glance, it's still recognisably a CB250RS, but the closer you look, you see the little quirks and modifications that make this a Shoogly Shed Motors build and not just a restoration that anyone can pull off. All the usual will be getting done. The engine will get blasted and recoated and all that kind of thing. Forks will get re-chromed, frame will get powder coated, tank will be resprayed, along with the plastics and things. All the hardware replaced with shiny new stuff. So hopefully the bike will look, you know, show-worthy condition, just like any of my builds. But I don't want to spend 2.5 years like I did on the XJR on this build. So with that in mind, I think the first thing I'm probably going to do is strip the engine down to its bits. Sort out what I need to do to that, start acquiring parts for the engine and start getting things like the machining work done to the barrel, get an oversized piston, that kind of thing, and then try and get the engine rebuilt so the engine's basically done, wrapped up and safe, and then we can strip the rest of the bike, do the little kind of modifications, any welding that needs to be done to the frame, that kind of thing, get that all done, and then get the bike stripped, get all the coatings and finishings done, and then it's the kind of joyful reassembly that I really do enjoy. I don't think anyone doesn't enjoy it, really, having all the shiny parts to put back on a bike and for the last time as well. So again, this isn't going to have all the big modifications and customizations that some of my other builds, especially the XJR, I've had, because that obviously takes up so much more time. And like I say, I want this bike to still be recognisably a 1980 CB250RS, just with the little quirks and additions that I can give it. So hopefully that is an interesting little project introduction, and I hope that it is exciting and you're looking forward to the content that I produce on this bike. Like I said, it's not going to be months and months and months and months and months of work, hopefully, fingers crossed, you never know. But I'd like to turn this around fairly quickly and, like I say, sell the bike on and put money into more projects. The CB400 over there I have bigger plans for. I will explain all that in due course, but that's going to get more of a big sort of Shoogly Shed custom build treatment. Whereas this, to me, feels like a fun little project to get the bike back on the road, looking fresh as ever. As usual, please do give me a like, leave me a comment and subscribe to the Shoogly Shed channel, and I will hopefully see you in the next episode where we get diving into that engine. Better go buy my Haynes manual. I'll need that. It's like wallpaper. You start picking at a corner and then suddenly you've redecorated your whole house.